Okay, hello everyone. My name is Charles Banfield and I'm the founder of Karate Canucks. Karate Canucks is a passion project of mine that's intended to be a repository of photos, videos, and other information that capture the Canadian martial arts experience. So to that end, I've been conducting conversations with prominent Canadian martial artists to capture their stories, their advice, and opinions on various related topics. So today I'm very pleased to be joined by Sensei Norma Foster. So currently a 7th Dan in Wado Ryu, Sensei Foster is the founder of the Canadian Zenkuren Wado Karate Association, which is a part of the JKF Wado Kai, and is also the first woman to referee male kumite competitions at a WKF World Championships. So welcome, Sensei Foster, and thanks for being here today.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Excellent. So so this is intended to be a conversation. So I'm just going to start with some very basic question, some general background information about you. So can you tell us a little bit about where you're from, where you grew up, a little bit of your backstory?
Okay. I was born in Edinburgh, Scotland. I lived there till I was 14. And then circumstances led to me moving to Aberdeen in Scotland in the 60s. And that was it.
So you moved to Canada. How long ago did you move to Canada?
Well, I didn't move directly to Canada. It was a rather circuitous route. I first moved from Scotland to Houston, Texas. Then I stayed there for 2 years. Then I went to Fukuoka City in Japan for 6 months. That was around 1975. And then I moved to Little Rock, Arkansas for a year. And then I had to leave there and moved back to Scotland thinking, now what? And then I moved to London for 6 months, and a friend of mine who had done a PhD in botany at Aberdeen University and who dabbled in karate, got to be yellow belt, came to Simon Fraser University in Vancouver to do a postdoc, and he said, can you come here and help us out, establish a lab to do receptor chemistry, which is what I'd been doing all my life anyway, up until then. And I said, sure, yeah, right. Canada, yeah, sure, why not? Go there for 2 months. And yeah, so I came here for 2 months.
And then you lost your calendar, I guess.
Apparently. I stayed for 9 years. I became a landed immigrant. Then I became a Canadian citizen. That was because of karate, by the way. Mm-hmm. And then I left and went to Japan for 8 years and came back, and I'm still now in Canada. So Canada is now my home, Vancouver, and Scotland is where I'm from.
Okay, understood. So you mentioned that you stayed in Canada because of karate. So can you give us a bit of information about your current martial arts experience, your background in karate, and any other styles or arts that you may have studied?
Okay, well, I didn't actually stay in Canada because of karate. I stayed in Canada because of a job. And as for my karate thing, well, yeah, I started training in 1969 in Aberdeen, and much to the horror of my male counterparts, because there was no other females ever in that city who did karate. And the reason was, well, it's you'd get hurt, you'd cry, there's no other girls, blah blah blah. It went on and on. The clear message was, you're a girl and you don't get to do karate. And I went, yeah, well, I don't care, I want to know what it's all about, because you guys come at the pub every Tuesday and Thursday full of enthusiasm about all these words I don't understand, and I want to know what it is. And you have to consider that I'd been a competitive swimmer for 7 years. I'd been thrown out of the program because I was now 14 years old and didn't beat the clock anymore. Hardly surprising. I had exercise-induced asthma or some stuff like this. I don't know. Still don't know to this day that. And I did racquetball, I did squash, I did this and that and the next thing, but nothing really replaced that. And so I thought, well, I want to find, what is this karate stuff? Eventually, they let me in, and I was ignored for 6 months. You know, like, that's good, Norm, doing your body up your hips. So what the hell does that mean? I don't know. Still to this day, I haven't a clue. And so that's where it started, right? And anyway, surmounted all of that rubbish, and then the club had to merge with another Shotokan and start with Shotokan. I didn't know that, by the way, for 2 years. I thought it was karate I was doing. I didn't know it was Shotokan. And didn't know about styles. And we had to merge with this other instructor. And I thought, oh my God, this guy is a completely different animal. Well, he wouldn't let me in the dojo. He wouldn't let me in the club. Why not? There's no changing rooms for women. Oh, okay. Well, this is a primary school. We've got toilets. Of course, they've got lavs. I said, well, if I change in there, can I join the class? And he's like, you could just see it, like this. So I joined the class, paid my dues, 1 and 6pence, which is not a lot of money. It's probably about 3 cents in today's money. Joined the class and got ignored for another, year or two. So then I just kept going. Like, I'll show you, Yabas, I will make you correct me, because he corrected everybody in the class, but not me. And I thought, I'll make you correct me. So I listened to everything he said. I tried to apply it. And then, I passed the yellow belt exam. And then I spent £6.15 getting a Tokaido gi, ordering it up from London. And when you consider I was earning £10 a week and paying £8 a week in rent, that's a fairly substantial investment. So I got an actual Tokaido gi. Suddenly he started taking me seriously, and then he started correcting me. So then my next goal was, I'm going to make this bastard stop correcting me. So that kept me going until a certain point. So anyway, eventually I became Shodan and Shotokan. And then I left Scotland, and that was around 1971, 2, I can't remember, I have to look. Details are in Vancouver, I'm in Ontario. So then I left Scotland in 75, went to Houston, Texas. There's no karate in Texas in 1975 that I could find that I had access to. Well, there was in Texas, but not in Houston. And then somebody said, oh, Norma, but there's a karate school, 0.7 of them, just down the road, you could walk to it. I went, cool, okay, I'll go along there. So I went along. It wasn't karate, it was taekwondo. But there was this wee girl there. She was the same height as me, 5'2". Yeah, this and that. And she was a brown belt. And she was managing the school. She didn't own the school, she managed it. And I'm going, I've never seen a woman doing this before in my life. This is incredible. So we became very good friends. She beat the shit out of me. Nicely, I have to say. She had a sidekick that could stop a 75-pound swinging back. I mean, this woman was, a wall of muscle, lovely girl, sort of had an Aboriginal look about her, hair down to her butt, and she had this amazing talent, was a lovely person, beat the crap out of me, and I'm going, but you're a brown belt. I'm a black belt, how can you do this? And she said to me this, but Norma, there's nothing wrong with your karate. You're just doing basics. And I went, yeah, that's right. I don't know how to fight. So I spent a lot of time in the deep south in Texas running around following her. I was her, hatamoto, carrying her water bottle and stuff. My God, I'd never seen competitions in Scotland where you had 30 people, all women, brown belts, in the same division, beating the crap out of each other. I'd never seen anything like that. And she won her division every time. It was just fabulous. So we went around doing that. Finally, she introduced me to all kinds of people who were doing all kinds of stuff. And I ended up doing Taekwondo, Cha-Yon-Ryu Taekwondo in Texas. She said, Norma, you're going to like, this is Kim Soo, you'll like him. He does forms. So the next thing I'm doing a year of Taekwondo, Kim Soo. Right? And I thought it was good because I should learn how to kick because I couldn't kick anyway. Sure, whatever. Not to mention my disastrous hip flexibility or lack thereof. So anyway, I did that for a year and entered competitions all over the South. Then I ended up going to Fukuoka City and ended up back in the JKA again. And it was a nightmare. And I just felt like a right idiot. I'm here. I've got this black belt on and I've got the certificate in the JKA Shodan. I was nothing compared with the average green belt in this dojo from my perspective. I thought, oh my God, I shouldn't be allowed to stand here. I should put on a white belt. And they were very kind and lovely and helped me a lot. You know, there was a lot of Norma Chan and marched me over to the mirror. You know, have much of that. And they tried to now change 2 years of Taekwondo corruption back into Shotokan karate. So that was very nice. Still have a nice relationship with those people, by the way. So then back to the US. So I'm now back in the US. I'm in Little Rock, Arkansas. Well, I found this fabulous instructor, Bill Rogers. He was 7 years younger than me, which made it like an old soul in a young body. Fabulous, lovely person. So I went, oh my God, you do Shotokan. Oh my God, you got a Nidan from Nishiyama Sensei. You know stuff. So I joined with him and thereby became known as Ms. Norma. Right? So I spent a year being Ms. Norma because I was in Shodan. And I thought, you know, nobody can call me a sensei. I'm not a sensei. I don't teach anything. I don't know anything. I'm just, you know, this and that. So anyway, so we agreed on Ms. Norma was reasonable because he wanted to teach his people how to respect. And he was black. And I sure as hell ain't. And he wanted to teach them respect for all people. And I said, okay, I'll settle for Ms. Norma, but you ain't telling them to call me Sensei. So that was fine. 1 year later, back in the UK, nothing to do with karate, and then suddenly Vancouver. Well, there was a group in the West End Community Centre in Vancouver, and they were doing karate. And so I had a look in the door, and it looked like Shotokan. And then a fellow came out, and he was wearing a gi with the Shotokan tiger like this on his back. So I said, hey, he was a green belt, you know. And I said, what style of karate did you do? Shotokan. Well, I ain't Shotokan. But the class consisted of about 20% women. I'd never been in a class in my life that consisted of 20% women. So I thought, well, what the hell, what do I care? So I joined. It was 5 blocks from my house. And so I made friends in that club that are still friends to this day, and my closest friends among them. And so I trained there, and then I suddenly discovered Shotokan existed in Vancouver because I couldn't find it. So then I thought, okay, I had this dream in my head, suddenly came out of nowhere. I want to go to the national championships and be a part of mainstream karate, because the West End Community Centre wasn't. So I found a way to do that. And I developed this ultimate idea that I wanted to represent Canada in an international competition. That's very clever, Norma. You're not part of mainstream karate. You're not a Canadian citizen. You're not even a landed immigrant. So you've got a few things to do before you can do that. So I got them all done. And so I became a member of Karate BC. I became a member of the Karate BC team. I became a member of the national team. But I was doing straight JKA Shotokan. And during that time, I became Sandan in JKA Shotokan with Nishiyama Sensei in Los Angeles. So that was the actual fundamental place where I was at. I was still a member of the national team when I moved to Japan in 1989. Yeah. So that's the background.
That's the background. It's quite a journey. Like you said, circuitous route. Yeah, interesting. So I'm curious, you mentioned your living when you first started doing karate and so on, and you were kind of drawn to the enthusiasm that some of the fellows were hitting the pub, and they were all you saying words you didn't understand and all that. Was it the energy from the people that drew you to the activity of karate, or was it something else? Like when you finally saw it, what was it that made you keep coming back despite the fact that you were being ignored?
Well, I feel that there is a distinct parallel between swimming training and karate training, or at least there was at that time. I mean, you're doing training for swimming. What do? You swim backwards and forwards up and down a pool, repeating the same thing. Ad nauseum, ad infinitum, getting tweaked. Oh yeah, raise your elbow higher, do this, do this, whatever. And when they finally let me in, I went, I get this. You're walking backwards and forwards across the floor, getting tweaked. There was a discipline to it that I already understood as a kid, because I started swimming when I was 7. And I got kicked out of the program when I was 14, much to my total, absolute devastation. And just looked for something that had a similar discipline, but I couldn't have articulated it like that at the time. But looking back, I think it really was. It made sense to me. Yeah, it's like, but it could have been dance, it could have been ballet, think about it, any discipline. And I would have probably been right in. But ballet was impossible, so we couldn't do the 180 degree splits. But anyway, I think that's what kept me in it. What attracted me to it was the fact I wasn't allowed to do it. What made me stick to it was I really genuinely liked it. I was sort of hooked. And I was ready to show these son of a bitches that they were wrong. So I had a bit of a double reason to continue.
So you had an agenda.
Evidently.
So when you said when you started training, it was back in 1969, correct?
Yes.
So this would be your 51st year of experience, I guess.
Sadly, that's true. Or, well, amazingly, that's true.
I wouldn't say sadly, but so I'm curious. You mentioned that there were no other women that were doing this activity at the time, and I think generally around the world, at least in North America, there weren't very many women that would have been doing it anyways either around that time period. I'm curious to know what the training was like then for you versus what it is like, how your approach to training has evolved over time.
Well,
actually, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but there's a part of your backstory that you didn't really talk about, and that was the transition from Shotokan to Wado.
That's another story, because that happened after I went to Japan. But to answer your first question, which is, how does it differ from then and now? And I think some of the other people you have interviewed at this point might agree. The training was quite barbaric. Now, given I was the only girl in the dojo, to be fair, the guys treated me like, some piece of porcelain for a while. And then I sort of became a kind of almost like a mascot in a way, because I tried everything. I gave it everything. I just gave everything 100%. I mean, whatever, how hopeless it was, you don't know. But the training, my second instructor particularly, lovely man, he had that charisma. He wasn't tall. He was about 5 feet 7 or 8. He was a wee man, no particular education. He would appear at the door, and perhaps he was late that day. Suddenly, 20 people's stances got lower, or their punches suddenly got faster, And he had that charisma about him, but he was a very good technician. And I could see that in him. I'm going, my God, this guy knows stuff. I don't care if he's ignoring me or not. He knows stuff, and I want to learn from him. But the training was barbaric. You're late to class? Oh, you have to do 50 push-ups. Well, you want to do the splits? Okay, get in groups of 3 and we'll tie your belts around your ankles and yank on you. Oh, you want to be flexible in the hips? Let's sit and do the butterfly thing with your knees are up here because the dojo's freezing. It's not heated. It's a primary school gym, and they turned off the heat at 3 o'clock. And it's the middle of December. So your knees are like this. What do? They jump on your knees. And so this caused, of course, a few accidents and people stopping karate because of this stuff. But we didn't know any better. Why? Because that's what the odd Japanese instructor were on about. They were smart, you know, they really sold this stuff. Samurai, you know, sacrifice, all this rubbish. And so, of course, we were all Scottish samurai. That really, I think people bought into this. The instructors kind of bought into this. You have to think, my second instructor, as I said, he wasn't very tall. He wasn't educated, he was poor. And what he did for a while was earn money in a boxing booth, getting the shit beaten out of him for money. £1, you paid £1 and you got to beat the crap out of this wee man. So you go off feeling great, whatever. Anyway, he liked boxing, but he wasn't exactly doing the right thing with it. But he discovered, for some reason, somehow, karate. And I think it was in a book or an article, I don't know. And he thought, this sounds interesting. And so he studied from the book. And so for the longest time, he was doing ag, ook, ood, ook, stuff like no idea how to pronounce anything. And then he learned that there was karate in England. So he thought, how do I access this? So he invited the man up, who happened to be Kanazawa Hirokazu Sensei, and Kanazawa Sensei gave him a green belt right off the bat, just for all the effort he put into trying to teach himself karate from a book. So now, do you think the training was sophisticated? No. Do you think there was any sport psychology involved? No. Was there any competition? No. Was there any coaches? No. I entered a competition in Scotland, and my first fight was with a Sikh. So he refused to fight a female. So I got through he had to resign. So I got through the second round. The second round, I got my ass whipped by an Aikido practitioner. So every time I went forward and went, he would just grab it and throw me on the ground. So that was that. This was how it was at that time. And the training, as I said, yeah, you could do till the cows came home, but it had no meaning. But the psychological stuff was really interesting. It really set you up to tolerate a lot of stuff, which came into good stead later in my life.
Yeah.
Now, of course, it's not like that. Now think about this too. The demographic at that time in Scotland, anyway, was adult men.
Yeah.
Plus, now the demographic is children under the age of whatever. In Karate BC, I think the membership the last time I looked was something like 75% under 15 years old. You cannot treat children the way that you treated us at that time. And so, of course, as all sport has evolved and karate has evolved, it has become more humane. And that's a beautiful thing, because Funakoshi even said it, karate would be good for weak people like women and children. And finally, but he meant that in the spirit of being a teacher, and finally that's come about. And I think that's a beautiful thing. It is about everybody, but it wasn't then. It was only about men and working class men, because people with brains asked too many questions.
Yeah, more talkers than doers, I guess. Yeah.
Well, paralysis by analysis, but what if? Yeah, whatever.
So when you made the transition, I was reading an article, I guess where you were interviewed some years ago, and where it talked a bit about your transition from Shotokan to Wado, and what was that? Was that a bit of an eye-opener, I guess, for you in terms of, you know, the differences in how different Waza, different techniques are performed, and that did you find that Wado agreed with you a little more than Shotokan did, or I'm just curious as to, you know, I know that you were training both at the same time for a while, and then ultimately you made a choice, and I'm just curious as to what that process was like.
Well, it wasn't so much the style, it was the people.
Oh, okay.
The instructors, it could have been any style. It could have been Kung Fu, it could have been Joe Blow Karate Do. I don't know. But the instructors, they accepted me. They treated me like a normal human being. They treated me with as much respect as I gave them. I'd never experienced that in my life at the time with the JKA instructors, right? So I did not go to Japan thinking, oh, I'm going to change style. And if I did, it certainly wouldn't have been Wado. It would have been my first choice. I'm like, weird style, whatever. But when I went to Japan, it was the time when the WKF introduced the Shite Kata, right? So I happened to understand a couple of Goju Kata because of something I'd done in Vancouver a while back. So I had kind of 4 of them. And I was sort of doing Wado, and I filled in the 2 Wado Kata. So all I had to do was sort of think about the 2 Shito Kata. And I thought, wow, okay, this is cool. And so my main objective was to learn another style because I wanted to judge WKF karate coming from some kind of basis of knowledge, however shallow that might be, right? Because I know I'd spent 23 years doing Shotokan karate by the time I went to Japan. So I thought I should feasibly spend a few years doing some other style of karate from the viewpoint of judging competition, because I didn't want any kata athlete to lose some gold medal because I was a stupid judge that made the wrong decision. I wanted to say, I will justify my decision, whatever that is. And if the person loses the gold medal, I want to be able to look them in the face and say, here is why you lost, based on this, this, and that. And so I wanted to study other style kata. So it came about that I happened to know the chairman of the Japan Karate Federation because they brought a team over to BC and had a little match with everybody, and I had helped him buy some lipstick for his wife or whatever in some department store in Vancouver. So I knew him. And so I asked him, could you please recommend me some instructor, to go to, because here's my objective. So I got this phone call from the secretary. Norma-san, please go to this place at this time and meet Arakawa Toru Sensei. And I'm going, well, who's he? I've never heard of him. And there was a lot of Shitoryu in BC, so I knew a little bit about some Shitoryu names. Well, who's he? What style is he? And Fusajiro Takagi said, Wado. And I went, everybody knows Wado Kata doesn't win world WKF championships, Why is he sending me to this man? But I trusted Fusajiro Takagi, a stupid man. He was educated at Keio University. He studied Chinese classics. He was quite fluent in English. He was no dummy. So I'm like, why is he sending me over here? There must be some reason. And he sent me to a Shotokan instructor that wasn't JKA. So I thought, okay, why is he doing this? So speculation about the other one, who's absolutely lovely, treated me so well because of his obligation to him, and bless his heart, but I couldn't continue with him because he wasn't teaching me anything useful for what I wanted. At the same time, the JKA was undergoing a split, or court cases, and everybody was just like going crazy, accusing each other, this, that, and the next thing, and probably like, oh my God, your little finger's like this, instead of like that when you do knife hand walk, who knows. But they were in turmoil. I couldn't learn anything from them. I couldn't go there. The place was falling apart, and I went there and experienced it, so I knew. And this guy wasn't helping me. So Wado wasn't, winning any World Karate Federation championships with their kata. But I thought, what's he doing? He's setting me up here. So I went to visit Mr. Arakawa. I went to visit the other guys. The minute I got in that floor, now think about this. It's 1989. I'm going to meet this wee man. He shows up at Shibuya crossing, which I don't know if it was like 2 billion people cross the 16-way intersection in the middle of Tokyo. And I'm there to meet this Japanese guy, duh. And so a wee man, taxi pulled up, a wee man comes out wearing a karate gi and a hand-to check jacket, sport jacket. And he goes, Norma desu ka? And I went, Arakawa Sensei desu ka? And I only knew about 1,000 words of Japanese. Arakawa Sensei desu ka? And he goes, I'm going, oh God, I'm getting a taxi with this old geezer. What's going to happen? And of course, the taxi goes like this. And I'm thinking, oh, Chainsaw Massacre, white slavery, God knows what was going through my head, And we get out at this primary school, we get in the room. It's full of black belt men. And I'm going, oh, damn. He goes, points over here. So I had to change under the stage of this primary school auditorium down there, and there's cockroaches and 15 layers like this thick of dust, And I'm going, oh, what have I got myself into? Put on your gi, get up the stairs and go, well, you asked for this, Norma, so you better get on with it. So I came up out the stairs, and they just lined up. So all these eyes were just staring at me. And I just went, oh, well, what's new about this? Just like being back in Scotland. And so I went off. And fortunately for me, you don't know which end the people line up, right to left, left to right, I don't know. And there was no line of senpai over here, none of that. Fortunately, white belts over here. So I immediately walked behind everybody and stood at the other side of the white belt. And so that was that. And the class started. Well, the boy took the warm-up, T-boy. And I thought, well, nothing unusual here, normal. And I went, when's the wee man going to come and do something? He did. And literally within 5 seconds, I went, this man knows stuff. I want to study with him. I couldn't have cared less what style he was. I liked his approach. I liked everything about him. Like the manner in which he delivered the product, the depth of the explanation. I mean, it's just, and he could demonstrate it. And I thought, I've never seen anyone like that. So I thought, okay, I want to come back on Thursday, because I couldn't find it on Thursday. Hardly surprising, it was in another place on Thursday, so I had to go home disappointed. But I did come back. So I stayed there. So I continued studying with the Shotokan boy that I felt had nothing to give me, but was so kind and very, absolutely lovely, took good care of me. The Wado, which might not have been doing that good either, but I felt the quality of the instruction was fabulous. So that's what I did for 2 years. And then finally, when the JKA stuff around that time, happened to get resolved by the courts, I went, no, I'm going to go over here. I'm more happy over here. And part of that was influenced by the fact that 2 years in, I met another Takagi, nothing to do with the Federation, Japan Karate Federation head. They used to call him Big Takagi. And this Takagi, everybody called Dental Takagi, because he was a dentist. Well, he was the 7th Dan in Wado Ryu. And the same thing happened. Somebody invited me to go and train. Why are you wasting time with this old geezer, Arakawa Toru, world famous expert Wado karate? Why are you training this old geezer? You should train with him. And so I went along and I thought, oh my God, this guy knows stuff too. And furthermore, I had gone to that dojo without a gi. And so he looked over and he went, come on in, And I went, oh, it's too bad. Next thing you know, boy leaves the room, comes back. A few minutes later, hands me a gi, almost slimy, almost brown, black belt. And I put on the gi and I'm going, oh shit. It says Takagi on it, the gi. And the belt was from Otsuka. Later I figured that out, and I could read Takagi, right? And I think, oh my God, he's got this in the trunk of his car, as it turned out. A spare gi in case somebody shows up. And I'm wearing this. Well, we happen to not be that different in terms of leg length and body length. So I walk out and going, oh shit. And I walk in the floor and going, okay. now I'm wearing a boy's gi. I have to go in. I can't just go, oh, sorry, I can't do that. But this man was absolutely amazing. And he is the one that became so responsible for everything we're doing now, Wado, Kai, karate in Canada, because of that man. Just a lovely, lovely person and such a knowledgeable. So I decided to say, okay, cut Shotokan, I'll go 100% this way. But because the JKA had kind of come to terms and split, I went and rejoined the new vision of the JKA, which is another interesting story that we won't bore people with right now. And the reason I did was to keep my vision of the two shite kata in my head, because kankudai, kushankudai is not so different between Wado and Shotokan. The interpretation is drastically different, but the movement and the embus and everything is the same. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh, I better pay attention. So I joined again, and I showed up when X instructor was teaching and doing this particular kata, or some kata that it didn't exist in Wado. So that is why I ended up training in the Wado Kai, because guess what? I could train 7 days a week with two of the world's most famous and talented, knowledgeable instructors in the field. Well, how often do you get an opportunity like that? So that's what I did. But as I say, it could have been anything. It could have been Chito Ryu, it could have been Shorin Ryu, it could have been any Ryu. But that was the point for me. So I continued this sort of subliminal level of Shotokan training and continued 100% Wado over there.
So it was less the style that drew you in. It was more the people or maybe the lack of politics within the organization. Maybe
nothing to do with politics. I'm not in no clue what was going on in the Wado Kai organization. It was everything to do with the personal relationship between myself and those instructors. They treated me with respect. They didn't discriminate me and go, oh, well, stupid gaijin, or, female or whatever. They were, oh yeah, new member in the group, magic, And so if they respected me, I could feel it. It was so easy, and of course I respected them right off the bat, and then spent the rest of my life trying to convince Arakawa Sensei to stop smoking, which everyone thought was disgustingly rude. And I went, I don't want this man blowing smoke in my face when we go to the bar after training. I think that's rude. And I know you can't say anything to the man, but I don't mind saying it, because he's going to save his life or add a couple of minutes to his lifespan and mine if he just doesn't smoke. And later that happened to be true. But, I could say these things because I'm a gaijin, but I always had to sit next to Mr. A, any party, gathering, after training, drink, after, whatever. Same with Takagi Sensei. But Takagi Sensei didn't smoke. It's easier to sit next to him. It's all about the people. It's absolutely about the people, not the style. And nothing to do with politics.
Quite a bit of time in Japan, you mentioned, a number of years you were there. And, you've trained all over the world, essentially. I'm curious about your thoughts on the importance of tradition in training, whether it's as a practitioner, as an instructor. Is it, some people might consider, using the Japanese terminology and going through the customary, how you open a class, how you end the class, the bowing and all that sort of stuff as cultural appropriation. When you're not a Japanese by heritage or by race or whichever. Any thoughts on the importance of tradition in using the language, using the customs and that kind of stuff in the training, or is it just more of a ceremonial type of thing?
Well, I believe that all traditions should be respected. And I mean, when you look at something like ballet, the tradition is that all their stances or postures are all in French, right? It's a pas de deux, it's a plie, it's not just stand there, cross your legs and turn around, So, and I think tradition is important to uphold. The question is, what is a tradition? And I asked on a train journey with Fusajiro Takagi, actually, he asked me this question. What do you think of Budo? And I'm going, oh. Well, I said, well, Sensei, I like to drink wine. So I have a lot of respect for Budo Shu. Because Budo in Japanese also means grape. And wine is referred to as Budo Shu. and of course the characters, the kanji are different. And the inflection is different. It's Budo as opposed to Budo, right? And and he just fell about laughing, and I thought it was really an interesting question, and he thought it was quite obviously, he was giving me a bit of a challenge. But the thing is, what the question really is, what is tradition? Well, I get up every morning at 7 o'clock and brush my teeth. Is that a tradition or a habit? So the question is it a habit, or is there a real historical tradition here that is worth preserving? Now, in Koryu Budo, for example, they live to preserve tradition. That's what they do with sword arts and so on and so forth. And I have a lot of respect for that. The question for me is, how much tradition, if you understand how much is in your style or your art, do you inflict on your students? Well, I can guarantee you that the 8-year-old yellow belts that ever teach you about class don't give a shit about tradition. All they're interested in is you show up on Tuesday, teach them stuff, right? So you're looking at a class full of kids and you're going, well, how do I discipline these kids? Well, there's various ways to use it. You can use tradition in that way. You can use psychology. You can use a lot of different perspectives, because this is the world we're in now, right? So for me, it's a question of understanding the tradition, knowing it, understanding it, respecting it, but how do you apply it to the audience that you have now? And now, I happen to be 68 years old. I am incapable of kneeling. I've had 3 surgeries on 2 knees. They don't like kneel. They don't like, weight on a bent joint. So I'm not going to do seiza for anybody, right? So if people want me to kneel down, I'm just going to tell them, no, I don't do that. Sorry. It's not because I don't respect the tradition. It's because I respect my condition right now at this age. When I knelt down, fine, for X number of years, no problem. Yeah, I didn't have a problem with that. So for me, this is the importance of tradition in today's world, that tradition from over there applied over here. How do you use it? How do you to the most effective way? And we can make a study of the tradition and the values and so on. But ultimately, I think among karate styles in general, it's not so different. You kneel down, sensei, ni-re, whatever. Well, I've done a lot of bowing in my life, sensei, ni-re, this senpai, ni-re, otagai, ni-re, whatever. How many people you have to bow to start a goddamn class, It can go on and on. And to me, this can be abused as a control brainwashing mechanism. And I've seen it, particularly in certain clubs of a certain style. And I've watched it and I'm going, this is hilarious. I mean, for example, imagine going to a club that you've never been before, and then you've got a black belt. Everybody's got a black belt. It's fine, no big deal. And so you walk in, you go, I don't know. So you stand somewhere in the room and they say line up, and you go like, okay, we'll go over here. And then somebody comes up to you and says, knee down or sand down, and you go, no. And they go, well, what? And and you go, doesn't matter. Because they're so fixated on where they need to stand according to the rank. It's overwhelmed them, it's consumed them. I don't have any patience for this. And this is abuse of the tradition. And so I've seen it, and I don't like it. So that is my position on, generally speaking, on tradition. I respect it. I'm happy to respect it. I love tradition. I come from a country of tradition. Scotland, hello. Long history of tradition. Men wearing skirts, just like Japan. Drinking spirits, just like Japan. Island mentality, just like Japan. I get tradition. It's okay. I like it. I'm comfortable with it. But in today's world, it's a question to me of how do you use it effectively?
So what would be an example of an effective use of, say, Japanese tradition when teaching or practicing karate in a non-Japanese environment?
Well, I like, for example, children to police themselves. I don't want to order them to do anything. I want them to learn to respect the kid with the black belt or the brown belt or whoever, whatever. So if I can teach them all, okay, when I say line up, I expect you to line up like this. You lot down there, it's like a rainbow. You go from white to black. You go from the light to the darkness. Think about that. Anyway, so the thing is, I like to, and I did these experiments, conducted them my own student, bless her heart. And you walk into a room, there's full of kids, they're running around, they're making lots of noise, they're having fun, they're doing all kinds of stuff, and you go, line up. And you stand there in the front of the class. And a couple of kids go, like, because they've been there long enough and get it, right? And then slowly, the rest of the kids join in the line. And there's always one or two who just don't. And the kids go, over here, And it's like, okay, say that. And they all know what that means. Kneel down, right? Bow. Otagai ni re. Fine. To me, this is an example of the use of tradition. You're using tradition, but you're putting it in the context of the people you're dealing with. And I think there's nothing more beautiful than seeing, a 6-year-old kid being taught by a 10-year-old kid under supervised circumstances, right? In a specific task. Teach that kid how to do this. And they can do it. And I think that's such a beautiful thing.
So a short while ago, you talked about the effectiveness of your early day. When I was asking you about what drew you to karate, and you said you kind of felt like I'm paraphrasing here, but it was kind of like at home. You had done a lot of competitive swimming, and it was a lot of repetition and that kind of thing. And it was an effective way to build up your mental toughness, mental fortitude, if you will. And you alluded to something. So I'm curious, has martial arts training helped you cope or overcome with challenges, either, personal, professional, just general frustrations, or anything else that, has helped you strive toward another goal that's not karate related even?
No. The short answer is no.
Short answer is no. Okay.
I swear I came out of that warm, wet place, as a bairn. I was caught by the local Edinburgh police at the age of 2, walking along the main street of Edinburgh, staring into shop windows. I walked along the main street and gone up the bridges, so it had to be a mile and a half or whatever. And I get stopped by these 2 constables, and they're going, "Oh, hello, little girl, what's your name?" And I'm going, "Norma Amos." Foster's my first husband's last name. Actually, I didn't say that. I said Norma Ann Amos. And they looked at each other and went, "That's her relic." I got bored at this meeting with my mother and her sister-in-law in having a picnic or whatever down in the Princess Street Gardens. And I just took off. And I'm 2 years old. I've got the blonde curly hair. I'm wearing a pair of dungarees. And somebody captured that picture. And somebody took a photograph of it. And that's me. I'm like this. It's like, I'm bored with this. I'm going over there. Much more interesting. And I suspect I probably just sort of came out that way. Karate just sort of helped cement it, perhaps. I don't know. But I've always just sort of been, well, that's not right. Why can't I? I remember people telling me as a kid, "Oh, Norma, you can't wear breeks when when you're grown up and you get a job. You have to wear a skirt." And I'm going, why? It just didn't make sense to me. I was a tomboy, I would climb trees, climb anything, walls, trees, whatever, run about. I tried every sport. I tried cricket, I tried tennis, I even tried golf, everything, bowling, just everything, because it was interesting. Like, why would anybody stop you? And then when I hit this barrier in the WTF, for example, oh well, big problem. And you hit this barrier and I fancy doing karate, big problem. I'm like, that's not right. Why is it a problem? It just doesn't make sense to me. That's just the way it is.
So it wasn't that, I guess, the practice of martial arts helped you develop the stubbornness, I guess, to to deal with things. It actually kind of
probably enhanced it.
Helped reinforce the stubbornness that was already there.
I think stubbornness is associated with an island mentality. Shimaguni Konjo, the Japanese call it. I think it also is part of a Scottish mentality. I know quite a few stubborn Scots, other than me, but they certainly manifest it in different ways. But no, martial arts itself did not save me from anything or do anything. It was almost like a conduit for exercising my stubbornness. And this, I think, was a big mistake that certain people made in my life, is underestimating that. Because they just thought, they were just going to wipe me off the face of the karate mat and that's going to be it. No, not exactly. Sorry, that isn't going to happen.
They didn't know who they were up against, I guess, yeah.
Well, it's not so much the who as the what.
Or the what, yes, exactly.
There was a strategy I used to use for kata competition, right? I managed to win a few national championships, kata and kumite, and actually was the person who was completely responsible for introducing female team kata and team kumite into Karate Canada. And I had people in BC who were far more talented than me, with the more flexible ankles, the more flexible hips, the longer reach, whatever. And they were equally competent in the kata and kumite, at least in my view. But on a given day, I could beat them, I could win over them if I could really put my mind, channel negative energy into positive energy. So what I would do is think of something that really annoyed the hell out of me. And it could have been from when I was 3 or 5 or 25 or last week. It doesn't matter. I would take it and I'd get really annoyed. And I would take that energy and channel it into the kata. And I would take it into, I'm going to use that energy and fight it. But, you know, every time I turned around and did some movement, you know, I go like, you know, and whatever. And I would use it. And when I could do that most effectively, suddenly you got medals, you know, so it was all really good. But for me, that was a really good way of channeling negative energy that I didn't have to take to sleep at night. And I've never had issues sleeping. So I guess it worked. But I didn't do that with kumite. Not at all. Not at all. I couldn't and wouldn't apply that strategy to kumite.
So what was your preference then of the two, or did you have a preference? Did you?
Yeah, I preferred kata because I was
Kata?
interested in form. Like, why is it like this? How did it come to be like this? What other variations are there of this? You know, I wasn't consumed by bunkai. I mean, a lot of people are. That's great. Thank God somebody is, because it isn't me. But I'm interested in the application because this is not a dance. But of all the major styles, of the 4 major styles recognized with WPF, in Canada 5, bunkai is, you know, interesting. It's very important. It's very complicated. It's very complex. There's thousands of them. But you see, Wado or Ryu is not Okinawan. It didn't come from Okinawa. It wasn't based in, well, it was, Otsuka took the wheel, you know, and didn't reinvent it. He just applied it to a different set of rules, which is Shindo Yoshi and Ryu Jiu-Jitsu. And what is that based on? A two-handled sword. A two-handed sword. Now, tell me about bunkai when a fucking sword's coming at you like this. What are you going to do? Get the hell out of the way as fast as you can. Right? Or you're going to be so well trained you sneak in and prevent them from doing this. So you apply the timing, you know, go no sen, sen no sen, a tai no sen, whatever, no sen. And you do something. But you certainly don't stand there going 1,500 combinations of kicks, punches, strikes, blocks, you know. It's different. And so I once did a seminar in the Pan American Karate Federation, and I had to do the Wado Ryu style. It was still in the days of Shikata. And I had this massive audience. Oh, like all the guys were there. And, and one of the chair of the Pan Am referee committee says, so-and-so's here because he's suddenly interested in Wado because you said there isn't any bunkai. I said, oh yeah, there is bunkai, but it's not quite what Okinawan-based styles think, you know, right? And so I had a lot of fun with that. And it's true. If you're thinking about this happening, coming towards you, you have no time to hunch your shoulders, think, oh, you know, whatever. Oh, I can do one of these 1,500 moves. You're probably going to think about getting the hell out of it. And so this, I'm going to say basis, that superimposed on top of what Otsuka learned from Funakoshi, this series of moves, pinans, you know, whatever. The interpretation is not Okinawan. The interpretation is Japanese. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes Wado Ryu Japanese and no Okinawan. And so I would use that and sort of say, Wado, we don't have any bunkai. We don't deal with bunkai.
So following up, I guess, on the competitive aspect of karate, said, you know, your preference was more on the kata side of things versus kumite. I'm just thoughts about I'm curious about your thoughts about karate being introduced at the Olympics, whenever the next Olympics is going to happen. In I guess it's in Tokyo. It was supposed to be this year. It's likely going to be next year, hopefully. Just curious about your thoughts on its introduction into the Olympic Games.
Well, yeah, I really don't spend a lot of time thinking about it, to be honest. But a lot of work has gone into this over decades. And there was a big fight with Nishiyama back in the day when he wanted to get Shotokan karate to be Olympic karate. So there was a huge fight that went on for years. And then they had to decide, Nishiyama decided to split his vision of Shotokan into traditional karate as opposed to sport karate. Imagine that. And all of this stuff came into being around the late 80s, early 90s. As Nishiyama was trying in LA, he was a founding member of the GKA, by the way. And he was trying to get his vision of Shotokan karate into the Olympics and be known forevermore as the man who got karate into the Olympics. The problem is, your thinking's flawed, my friend. Shotokan karate isn't going to get into the Olympics because it's like saying, I put wee air-filled balls over a net on a table, and that's going to be tennis. Yeah, but you're saying, but that's on a table. That's table tennis. We've got this other tennis over here that is life size. It's got a net that goes from here to there, and then we've got badminton where the net's up here, and you bat this daft wee thing with feathers over the net. I mean, how dare you say that this is the only vision of karate? So of course that didn't work. So then Canada sat on the fence for many years, wondering, should we go with, WUKO, WKF, whatever it was called at the time, IAKF, sorry, International Amateur Karate Federation. Should we go IAKF, purely Shotokan, or WUKO at the time, all styles? Well, hello, you've got all kinds of styles in Canada. Hello. So finally, the decision was made to go over there. Now, God knows what's happening in other countries during all this time, but Japan Karate Federation's been very motivated to get karate into the Olympics, yeah? And Japan is the fount of knowledge, if you will, of all karate styles that exist today. Well, Japan and Okinawa. And the GKF is fully behind this movement, always has been. So who am I to comment on it? I think it's a good advertisement for karate. But the way that karate has been forced to become at the Olympic level has been rather guided by what the Olympic IOC wants to see in that sport. And that has had a huge influence on the rules, and the rules influence the behavior. And then you get this kind of sterilized, perhaps, restricted version of what karate competition could be, right? But these rules are implemented due to, we have to have the safety of the competitors. Well, you can't have a combat art to keep people safe. It's an oxymoron, right? So how do you deal in this circumstance? You have to please the IOC, you have to protect the competitors, you have to provide a show, so you have to encourage these techniques, but you have to penalize them if they do that, So to me, it's been an incredible journey, and to watch the evolution of WKF karate towards this goal. And to be fair dues, WKF now has something like 100, almost 200 countries part of its organization. And to me, this is the flag bearers for karate, because some instructors will tell you, particularly in Europe, if you have a World Karate Federation champion in your dojo, and that person is nice, and they're good or whatever, we kids love this. Oh my God, we've got a champion in our school, and blah, 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 blah. So this encourages more participation. So this is one view of Olympic karate as something that most of us will never attain. And it shouldn't be, because Olympics in general shouldn't be something anybody can do sitting on their couch with their beer or a glass of wine. You know, it should be something unusual, something special.
Yep.
So I believe that it would bring karate it might bring karate a lot of respect from non-karate associated people, and it may work very well as a flag bearer, as an advertisement, if you will, for karate at the dojo level. But time will tell, because who knows if the 2021 Olympics will even happen.
That's right.
And even if it does, is karate going to be in future Olympics? We don't know.
Yeah, we know, well, I think we know that it's not going to be part of the Paris Olympics, which is scheduled for 2024.
Well, I wouldn't say that's necessarily carved in stone.
Not carved in stone? Okay, well.
But the probability is definitely on the other side. But I wouldn't say it's carved in stone yet.
Mm-hmm. So as a WKF referee and judge, do you see yourself maybe, do you have any aspirations of being a part of the Olympic?
I started to become a referee, or aimed to become a referee or judge. Well, actually, I didn't become. I just wanted to judge kata at the Olympics in 1989. That's why I got involved in judging and refereeing. I had no interest in judging kumite. Well, I didn't mind judging it particularly, but I had no interest in being a referee. And I was a judge for 10 years, kumite.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, people kept going on at me, you should become a referee. And I'm going, you must be crazy. The minute you become a referee, now you're a target. People will go after you and aim to slice your head off. It's a very toxic atmosphere. And I said, I don't want to be that person. I'm happy sitting here throwing my flags out. And then I thought one day, yeah, well, that's rubbish. I'll go for it. And of course, I kept failing the exams. It was quite entertaining. And then eventually I passed them, much to the horror of those who were busy failing me all the time. And off I went. And I was fine at it. I mean, I remember here in Canada, I judged this bronze medal match between, I think it was Brazil and Venezuela, or something like that. I have to look it up, so I can't remember. I know Brazil was on one side. And I ended up being the referee of that bronze medal match. And it was a very heated, emotional match between, two Latin American countries. And I controlled it, I got on with it, and I did it just fine. And I really enjoyed it. And it was good. And I got a lot of respect for people from the refereeing that I did. And I was really happy about that. But it wasn't something I really wanted to do. I never had any aspirations to referee kumite in the World Championships or even at the Olympics, right? But I was still interested in judging kata. But I got pneumonia at the World Championships in Belgrade in 2010. It attacked the sixth cranial nerve in my head, which controls the muscle over here in your eye. So I got double vision. And I lived with that double vision until this year. And when I got the double vision, I just went, I'm not refereeing anymore. Because I couldn't glance somewhere and go like this. It took 2 to 3 seconds for the images to line up. Mm-hmm. And in that time, I could screw somebody out of a medal. I'm going, no, I'm not doing this anymore. I could still judge kata because you were sat in a seat and you could sort of slowly move your head, like this. But I went, that's it. Career's over, done. And so that's the way it was. And now that I have single vision back again, it's no longer a priority. But I will be there. I will be there because that was my original aim, to be there. Now I don't know what capacity I'll be there, but I will be there. If it ever happens.
Maybe when it ever happens.
When and if, yeah, when and if.
Yeah, when it happens. Okay, I've just got a couple more questions for you, if that's fine.
Sure.
So here's a question I like to ask everybody. Get your thoughts. So what does a black belt mean to you?
Well, I would say to you, which black belt?
Your black belt.
My black belt, which one? I mean, are you referring to Shodan? You're referring to Godan? Are you referring what black belt is it, or is it just generic?
Okay, just to clarify, I'll say the concept of a black belt. What does that mean to you?
Well, it's a milestone. I mean, it really is. It's a milestone. You've strutted your stuff in front of 5 people or 10 or whatever, 20, whatever your STEM group desires, and you've strutted like, this is what I know, and I've been doing karate for this amount of time, and you get judged. So to me, it's kind of a subjective marker of your effort of X number of years. Now, the further up the Dan ranks you go, the more political it gets. People don't like you. You're a woman. Oh, well, gee, can't have any women in our 8th Dan club. Blah, blah, blah. I'm the only female 7th Dan in the Wado Kai in the world. To me, this is shameful. And so this is a stubbornness game. I will present myself for that 8th Dan exam until now. Either I drop or these people die, the examiners, right? Or they pass me, whatever, whichever one comes first. I'll just keep doing it. And the reason is, people have to understand that they can have any goals in life. You can choose to aim to this, aim for that. But if somebody just shuts down and everybody can use it against you, oh, well, there's no women in that. I mean, what kind of a motivation is this for people to try? So I think it's important to try these kinds of exams and forget all the political stuff. We know it's there. But don't use it as an excuse. Just keep showing up. Keep doing it. Maybe you'll get passed for good attendance. Who knows? So, over time, I have a Shodan, Nidan, Sandan in JKF, JKA, 4th Dan in the Wado Kai, 4th Dan in F, 5th Dan in Wado Kai, 6, 7 in Wado Kai. Well, what does that all up to? 35 Dan, whatever. Now, the thing is, what is the most important among these? Really? Shodan. And the reason is, to me, this is the one that differentiates you from being a learner, a beginner, a rainbow-colored belt, to somebody who knows a wee bit. And you've proven it in front of, people who don't know you even better, if they don't know you. And so this marks that differentiation between primary school and secondary school sort of thing, or, secondary school and university, whatever you want to say it. So to me, that is significant because there is no change in color after that. Who knows if you're a Shodan or a 9th Dan or whatever? You don't. You just look and see how old you are, try to figure it out. But there is no conceptual, visual difference between a Shodan and the other Dan. So now you're in the realm where it's kind of ambiguous what the black belt really means. So, to me, the black belt has the meaning as that differentiation between the rainbow colors and the next phase of your karate life. The rest of it is a matter of your personal desires. I want to aim for this. I want to challenge that. That's fine. Where are all my certificates? They're in a drawer. They're in a drawer. It's like bits of paper. Because really, the Shodan was the pivotal moment.
Actually, second to last question, I should say. Last one is going to be, if you have anything to add that we haven't covered, but we'll get there. So last question for you then. So and this is a two-parter, I guess. If you could do it over again, is there anything you would do differently? Or What do you know now that you wish you had known sooner?
Answer to part A, no. Answer to part B, nothing.
Okay. that's
I cannot begin to express to anybody the horror or the things that happen to me. People try to wipe me off from my own country, my own federation, my own whatever. Not the Wado Kai. People try to wipe me off the karate face of the earth. They attempted to, they wrote letters to the Wado Kai, Karate BC, Karate Canada, the GKF, WKF, complaining about me. And guess what? The whole lot of them laughed. But, you know, when I heard that, yeah, there was certainly one stupid thing I did. It was the early days of email. But really, given the circumstance, I would do it again because it changed the face of USA karate, NKF karate, and it finally changed the face of Karate Canada for the better. And so, yes, I should have given it a bit more forethought. I mean, I've been called psychologically imbalanced and all kinds of interesting things by auto mechanics of all things, which are surely experts in psychology, who've never met me, and you know, all kinds of things. And it got to the point where I felt like saying, like Erin Brockovich, oh, well, actually, I've just given out 683 sexual favors today, and I'm a bit tired. You know, I mean, you cannot believe the kind of stuff that got thrown at me. But I always kept saying, the beautiful thing about karate is I have made friends, lifelong friends, in corners of the globe where I don't even speak their language. And yet I'm a godmother to a kid, I don't even speak his language. You know, and I can go to all kinds of places and feel at home and comfortable. And that was the most beautiful thing that supported me throughout all of that, because it outweighed it. This was the anomaly. That part over here was the beautiful thing about karate. And it could have been knitting. I mean, it could have been book clubs. I don't know, you know, but it happened to be karate. And so I am thrilled to this day that I still have these lifelong friends that I could not have met in other circumstances. And to this day, I feel fortunate. Well, thank you for including me in your interview series. I mean, I hope it works. I think it's really important to document the growth and development of karate and the contributions of people to karate in this country, because it hasn't been done before. So I appreciate your involving me in the project. Thank you.
Well, I'm really honored that you you know, accepted the invitation to do this. You know, it's hard to be amongst the first, so I really appreciate your time and the sharing, you know, of your stories and of your thoughts and so on that you've done through this conversation. I don't like to call them interviews. I prefer to call them conversations. But is there anything that you'd like to add? Like, where would people be able to find you or your organization, website you want to share with anyone or with the listeners here?
Well, if someone's really interested, they can certainly find me at canadajkfwadokai@gmail.com. And there's no spaces, canadajkfwadokai@gmail.com. And if they have anything to find out, or they can find me at same Gusekai, Gusakai, Vancouver@gmail.com. And I'll be happy to, you know, entertain anybody's questions or concerns or whatever if they want to contact me.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, Sensei Foster. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you. And I've been looking forward to this interview for a while, just knowing the little bit that I've learned about you in advance of this. So
No.
And I wasn't disappointed. So again, thank you very, very much.